All right, Facebook. Good afternoon. Jack Beasley, Rep Banfield here to have another Ask a Lawyer session.
Ask a Lawyer session.
My name is Jack. I'm one of the attorneys here, one of the litigation attorneys here at Carr & Carr. I've been practicing about 8 years exclusively in the plaintiff's personal injury arena. Have tried 5 cases to jury verdict, handled numerous cases that have not gone to jury trial but have settled otherwise. So I think I have a pretty good grasp on how things work and what we can do to help you guys out and answer any questions. Brett, why don't you introduce yourself?
Rep Banfield. I've been with the firm. I'm a claims analyst with the firm. I've been here approximately 11 years. Prior to that, I was an insurance adjuster with an insurance company for 21 years. So I have a lot of experience working both the insurance side and the plaintiff side. And like I said, we're here to answer any questions you'd like to ask. So feel free.
Absolutely. It looks like we've got one there. Oh, we've just got some people watching. So one of the things we wanted to kind of talk about as we wait for people to kind of filter in or throw questions out there is kind of the importance or the role that uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, insurance coverage can play in a wreck for somebody that gets into a crash here in Oklahoma. I don't know about you, but a common scenario I see is we'll have a client come in or a potential client come in and say, hey, listen, I got rear-ended at a stoplight. Pretty clear who caused the crash. I'm hurt. I went to the hospital. But it turns out the other driver didn't have insurance. What are my options? And so that's where comes into play, right?
That is. And we do get a lot of those questions or calls coming in from that's happened to people. And the uninsured motorist, what that will do is in the event that party is uninsured, will give you access to making a claim to get your medical bills taken care of, to get if you have lost wages, your pain and suffering, and any other damages that you have been entitled to, you can make under that.
Right, and that's important because the times I've had these conversations with people are often in the context of they don't have coverage or uninsured motorist coverage. So really, there's not a lot most of the times that we can do for them. And sometimes they'll get a little frustrated and they'll say, well, why can't we sue this guy that hit me and go take his house or to garnish his wages or something like that? You got to understand that Oklahoma's got some pretty liberal bankruptcy laws and kind of garnishment laws. And so when that happens to you, it's really hard as a plaintiff's attorney to go after someone personally and actually collect money. And so that's why it's important that people evaluate the need for this coverage, uninsured motorist coverage, and have that in case they're ever hit by someone that doesn't have insurance. And it's certainly kind of an unfair situation because as somebody that has their own insurance, most of the time you assume everyone else does, but they don't always have that, and that's kind of disappointing. So,
and that is true. That is, I think recent statistics show somewhere between 35–38% of Oklahomans are uninsured, do not carry liability insurance. So when you do go to your agent to get your insurance, most people go in and say, hey, I want full coverage. Well, uninsured motorist is not a mandatory coverage. Liability is really the only mandatory coverage. So make sure to discuss that option with your agent and at the least get the minimum. You can get up to whatever limits you carry on your liability. But again, that's obviously based on your financial situation. At least try to always get the minimum of uninsured motorists so you're protected in any accident where you may be hit by an uninsured driver.
Sure. And to be honest, nobody thinks of this until it happens to them. And then it really, really sucks when it does happen to you and the other person doesn't have insurance and you don't have insurance. And there's pretty much not much we can do for you most of the time. And that's too bad.
Okay. In fact, we just had a question come in, Jack, that kind of relates to that. Holly, she says she's a passenger in a friend's vehicle she had a single vehicle accident. She was injured, but her friend has no insurance. What can she do?
Okay. So the example I gave a minute ago was you're sitting at a stoplight and you get rear-ended by somebody with no insurance. And tell me again the fact pattern.
Now
Is the friend at fault for
the
this?
friend is at fault, but she
So-
is not insured, and that car has.
So it's the same principle. It's
Right.
just instead of somebody hitting you, you're in a car. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of times, if you're a passenger in a car and you're in a car crash, it's your driver's fault. You can sue or bring a case against that driver's insurance to collect money for damages that you've incurred because of the crash. So what Holly's asking about is when that happens and you need to bring a claim for damages, either for medical bills or if you have to miss time for work or for pain and suffering, but they don't have insurance, what are your options, right? Well, first we want to figure out if Holly's had insurance, like we were talking about, whether or not we can make a claim against that. Kind of like we said, it would basically step in and fill the shoes of the other driver and pay for medical bills or lost wages or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So for the you don't have to be in your vehicle to make a claim under that.
Right.
So you can be in another party's vehicle. You can be walking across a crosswalk in an intersection, get hit by a uninsured or underinsured driver, and that uninsured motorist will follow you and provide coverage for you in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great thing to have. I highly recommend people go out and get it. I absolutely hate insurance companies, but I would happily give money to insurance companies, my own money for my own policy, my own family, and I would urge you to do the same for you, to go get uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage, okay?
Okay. Jack, we have another question. Jake.
Jake Pipinich, how you doing, man?
What if the friend...
Go easy on us.
Yeah. What if the friend had personal liability insurance under a homeowner's policy?
That's a good one. Jake is a colleague of mine. We've known each other for a while, and it's good to hear that question. Off the top of my head, I'm going to say that I'm not quite sure. I'd have to look this up a little bit.
I would say the personal liability under a homeowner's insurance is not going to apply to an auto accident.
I would bet there's an exclusion in
Yes.
there that's going to exclude driving or
operating a motor vehicle
right.
of some sort.
You do see, good point, that when you have homeowners cases, you do see it come up in all sorts of other kind of contexts. I've seen it in school bullying cases, where we brought cases against kids and their parents and received payment under homeowners insurance policies. I've seen it where we had a guy go over and was helping assemble an above ground pool, and the homeowner was negligent and basically let it slip and like almost cut the guy's hand off. We received payment under the homeowner's liability insurance for that one. So you do see homeowners policies stepping in and paying negligent claims, but not so much in the car.
Not so much on the car,
context.
but just to be on the safe side, if that situation ever arose, you'd want to get your policy and have that reviewed by an attorney. Call and have that policy reviewed to see if there was any way to get to that coverage. But normally the homeowner is going to follow you either on or off your premises for negligent accidents that you may cause.
Absolutely. Good question, Jake. Hope all's well, man. We need to get together soon.
Okay. This was something interesting that started, I don't know if it just started this week or...
I believe it started after the first of the year, right?
First year. The new Oklahoma uninsured motorists. This deals with actual drivers who do not have insurance on their vehicles. Apparently there are some vehicles going around Tulsa taking pictures of tags, sending that information to the DMV. And if there's no insurance attached to that tag number, they're sending citations by mail. Is that what you understand?
Sure, and it's kind of interesting. It's almost kind of like a Big Brother type setup where you've got these cars driving around with like mounted cameras either on the dash or on the hood, scanning your license plate just on the roadway for doing nothing other than just being on the roadway, right? So you're not getting pulled over by cops and having them run your tag or having them run your insurance. It's just this vendor has come in to the state and said, hey, we'll outfit these cars with these cameras if you let us get a cut of the money you collect for tickets you issue under this program. So what they're doing is the cars are driving around on highways and streets, and they're scanning your license plates, and they're running them against a database showing whether or not there's insurance tied to that license plate. If there is not, they're issuing a citation to the registered tag owner for not having insurance. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see what, if any, effect this has. I think a few years ago they instituted a program where they could tow your car if they ran you without having insurance. If they ran your tag, you didn't have insurance.
If you were stopped for a wreck or a citation or something.
I mean, my take on that is I haven't seen a big uptick. I think I see about the same amount of people who are uninsured as I did before that program. So I don't know how this will affect that moving forward. It'll be interesting.
And it looks like per the article, looks like the fee that they're charging will be $174, but you have to provide an agreement that you'll keep your vehicle insured for 2 years. If they don't comply, they risk allegedly arrest, vehicle towed, impounded, and license revoked. So,
and that's a whole other can of worms. That's way outside of my practice area. But this came up a lot with red light cameras. Were those a thing here?
I don't know.
They were huge, and I grew up in Dallas and lived in Dallas for a long time. And they had red light cameras. So if you ran a red light, you get a picture taken of you and a citation would be issued, right? Well, all these criminal defense lawyers and constitutional law scholars down in Texas took it up saying you weren't afforded due process. You didn't get to confront, your accuser, this kind of stuff. So you may see the same type of stuff with this program. But hopefully the end result is either more people that don't have insurance get it so you don't end up getting screwed in the long run, kind of like we're talking about. Or if you take away anything from listening to us today, for those of you who are, reach out to your insurance company and make sure you have some uninsured motorist coverage so you don't end up getting the short end of the stick if you're in a crash.
With one of these uninsured drivers.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people sometimes call in or, maybe not knowing what to do once they're in when an accident happens. What would be the steps you would say a person should take when they're involved in a motor vehicle accident? Sure,
that's a good question. I guess we qualify, but people that call us at least are almost never calling like from the collision scene, right? So if someone's watching and they're wanting to take notes or wanting to take away what they would do, if you're actually in a crash, make sure you're safe. Make sure you're not on the roadway where, like if you're on the highway or something, get off to the side. If you're on a city street, usually it's okay, right? I'd recommend calling the police, and as long as it's not raining and Operation Slick Streets, they'll usually come right out to you. That way you can have kind of an independent person there to take stock of what happened, write up a formal report, which helps both cover you and the other driver as far as what happened. Then if you are injured, a lot of times people leave crash scenes and they don't have their arms not hanging off, and they don't have blood gushing out of them, right? What they do is they wake up the next day or that evening or even a day or two later and they're sore, right? Kind of like when I used to play football and you'd be sore for a couple of days after the game. Yeah. What I recommend at that point is if you are sore, only you can be the judge of this, go get checked out by somebody, your primary care doctor, an urgent care if you think it's that serious, or if it's real serious, especially the day of or the day after, head to an ER and just see what the doctors say, and kind of go from there. That would be my main recommendation.
Yes, and back to the scene, if at all possible, take photos of the vehicles if you're able, if you've not been taken off an ambulance, because those photos will tell a lot. Insurance companies, they try to use that as a big defense. You may not have a lot of damage to your vehicle. The other car may really be torn up. Well, they're going to look at yours and try to use that to say, well, potentially you were not hurt too bad because of the lack of damage to your car. So photos at the scene of the vehicles are very vital in cases, and try to obtain those.
Yeah, and again, my number one recommendation is to make sure you're safe and then call the police. Okay. If the police don't come, either because it's raining and it's slick streets or they take forever, and you and the other drivers just decide to give up and leave. If there are witnesses or other people who saw it and stopped to talk to you, a lot of times you see that, especially on highway crashes where people will stop and try to help you out, make sure you're okay. Get their name and phone number so you have that in case they need to be talked to later on.
Yeah.
That's a big help for sure. But what I tell people who tell me that they're injured in a crash is, if you think you're injured, go get treatment, because the longer you delay, the harder it is, either for yourself or for us as your advocate, to help prove and establish that medical treatment and injuries were related to that crash. And so do that sooner than later.
Looks like we have another question here from Amelia. My daughter was injured under the care of a licensed child care provider in my home. Is there anything I can do?
That is a great question, and admittedly not an area of the law I practice in a ton. You're still going to be looking at similar causes of action, though, to cases that I do handle. Everyone owes a duty, especially when you entrust someone with your kid or whatever, to not be negligent, right? To use reasonable care and make sure the place is reasonably safe in the care of that child. So yeah, you could potentially have a case there.
Yeah, and again, we don't do a lot in that area, but I would tell you, based on the child care facility you're using, there are a lot of in-home facilities now.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure.
Brett, could I interrupt you?
Sure.
I was just walking by and
Pat Carr, everyone.
yeah, and we had handled cases like
Oh yeah,
that.
yeah.
We had, and I really think that if you do have a situation like that, you need to call us rather than get into the details. And now I do think you've got a good, possibly some kind of a cause of action at that point. But we'd be happy to see if there's something we could help. But generally speaking, if you have, I don't think I heard the entire question, I'm just walking by, but if a child is injured while in the care of somebody who's licensed in particular, yes, there's something to look at, right? I would not just ignore what happened. I think it could be very serious.
For sure.
And what I was going to say about that, because there are a lot of in-home child, and they do get licensed, but what you want to make sure is if you are picking one of those places, that you ask to see their insurance information, because not a lot, but some of these people try to get coverage just under the homeowner's policy, and there is an exclusion in that policy for taking care of children using your home as a daycare. So you would want to check the credentials, make sure they have the right type of coverage in the event your child would be injured in their care, and at that point would potentially have a case to be looked at.
But in this case, was the provider a licensed professional?
Yeah, said license.
Well, there's probably going to be coverage at that point, so it would be worth looking into.
So Amelia, I think probably the number one thing I'd recommend to you is to reach out and give us a call. Let's discuss the matter in depth. Our phone number is 918-747-1000, and we have operators there right now. So you can call and you'll get put through to, obviously not me or Rhett or Pat, because we're sitting right here, but they'll get your information and we can go through that with you in depth.
Right, if you could call and leave us a message at this point, we can get back with you.
Absolutely. So don't hesitate to reach out if you think something's there. We do provide free consultations to discuss whatever has happened to you, both to you personally, Amelia, or to anyone else who's watching. So don't hesitate to call us. We get calls all the time from all sorts of people about all sorts of things. And we're happy to talk to you about it at 918-747-1000. Absolutely.
And Evan, I saw your question come up, but I hope we answered that in our discussion regarding the uninsured motorists. This was another individual involved in an accident with hit and run driver, cars damaged, he was injured. What can we do?
I'll step out then.
Okay.
Sure.
Thanks,
Pat.
I think we already.
Pat Carr, everybody.
I think we already covered that information regarding that.
Yeah, just make sure you have uninsured motorists. I know I'm a broken record on that, but that's my number one piece of advice for people that ask me what my advice would be to you as somebody that could potentially be in a crash or something bad happened to you. You're going to really cover your butt really well by doing that. Okay.
Yeah, so Jack, we get a lot of calls on slip and falls. Heard at Walmart, heard at a restaurant, apartment complex, on ice. Just briefly, slip and fall laws in Oklahoma. Just not in depth, but
Sure.
just what you're.
A good question, and we do get a lot of calls. You see a lot of it at Walmart, Quick Trip, Target, places like that, apartment complexes. When you have a business or an apartment complex, which is also a business, they have to keep their premises. They got to keep their place safe for you, right? Or if there's something dangerous there, they got to warn you about it. As long as they could have reasonably known about it, okay? And so if you're pushing your grocery cart along and you slip something in the aisle and you get hurt, that could be a potential case, okay? You'd want to make sure you reach out to the store management or an employee to kind of institute the process through them so you get some sort of proof that it happened, right? Because a common response we get from places like Walmart are that, oh, we don't know what they're talking about. And the clients will say, well, they've got cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
And they do have cameras everywhere, but oftentimes the tapes are not there for us when we go look for them. Or the areas you're in don't show it. Or the cameras, if they are there, are not super high quality, right? So don't just assume because you're in a high traffic place like Walmart or Target or whatever that they're going to have it on tape. And so if there was a condition, usually the most common examples are some sort of liquid on the floor.
Produce.
Yeah.
Great.
Sure. Take photos of it, take videos of it if you can, and go from there. A lot of times from apartment complexes, we see people that are going up the stairs and perhaps the stair is wobbly or the rail's wobbly or their foot falls through. That's happened a couple times with some of my clients. We got to be able to prove that it was an area you're supposed to be in. Okay, so you can't just wander off all parts of the store or apartment complex and get hurt and then expect to have a claim against that place. So if you're supposed to be there, and if the business or the apartment complex or whatever it may be, you either knew about it or should have known about it, and either didn't warn you or didn't fix it, then that could be a potential case.
Pretty true. Pretty true.
So yeah, again, if you got anything like that come up in your life, or if you know anybody, and you just want to walk through it with us, one of our attorneys, just call us. We're happy to go through it and tell you what we think. Again, it's a free consultation, so there's no obligation on your end, and we just kind of tell you what we think to give you your options.
Yeah, it's 918-747-1000.
Absolutely.
Don't see that we have any other questions. Anything else you can think of?
Just popped in my head, like in Oklahoma, you've got a 2-year statute of limitations for things like car wrecks, slip and falls, stuff like that, negligence claims, okay? And it's 2 years from the date it happened. And so sometimes we get calls from people where things have happened past the 2 years, or right up upon the 2 years. And that sounds like a really long time. Like if you got in a crash today, 2 years from now sounds kind of far away. But by the time life happens and medical treatment happens and you have an ongoing conversation with the insurance company or whomever, 2 years can run by pretty quickly. So when we were talking earlier about what to do after a crash, again, at the crash scene, we went through that. Medical treatment-wise, we went through that. If you're having ongoing conversations with insurance companies, we're happy to talk to you about that and give you our opinions and your options. But don't wait out the 2 years. So you have a 2-year statute of limitations for negligence claims in Oklahoma. So that's something I think it's important to point out to people.
Yeah, good advice, Jack.
Thanks.
You bet.
I try to give good advice.
You do. Hey, looks like we're just about out of time. Here's one. If you're going to eat Mexican this weekend, where are you going to go, Jack?
Oh, good question. So I love Mexican food. There's a new place that I stopped at with my parents last weekend off 75 and 81st Street down by Tulsa Hills, Abuelos. It's not new because it's a chain,
Right.
But it's new to Tulsa. I guess there's one out like 71st, but I don't like going out there.
No, yeah. So they got one out by Tulsa Hills.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm always a sucker for Chewy's.
Jewish, yeah.
Yeah, what about you?
Pretty much there's a little, it's family owned on downtown, Main Street, downtown Broken Arrow.
Okay.
It's a place we frequent often, and it's the only one on Main Street, so great place to go.
At the Rose District?
In the Rose District.
What's your favorite place to go in the Rose District?
Probably the Tavern.
Yeah, Tavern's good.
Yeah.
In the Raw's good.
The Raw's good. Most everything down there.
What's the rooftop one? Is it called the
It's
roof?
The roof.
The
Rooftop.
patio?
Yeah, something
Okay.
like that. Yeah. So, well, anyway, till next month.
Absolutely.
First Friday next month in February, we'll be back. If you have
So I hope it was
questions-
helpful.
Yep.
Get UM insurance. If you have any other questions,
Call us.
call us, okay? We have the phone shooting through usually 24 hours a day,
Yeah.
although middle of the night's a little weird. Sometimes we'll get weirdos calling late at night. But call us anytime, 918-747-1000. Free consultation. Happy to talk to you about it. Happy to give you our take and answer any questions you have, no obligation. And if we don't know the answer, we will either find it or send you to somebody who does.
Yes.
Okay?
Good.
Well, have a great weekend.
All right.
Facebook
Have a great
world.
one.
Take it easy.
Jack.
Now we got to figure out how to end this. Boom.